And we're back. Did you miss us? Because we certainly missed you. Good evening, Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, everyone joining us online. Welcome to another episode of DMs with PM Youth Edition. Of course, it's yours truly, Shiloh Alexander, and
I am Tariq Miller.
Back at it again. Now listen, before we begin, I need complete honesty, okay? So how many of us have recently told ourselves that we're gonna go to bed early and then ended up scrolling and scrolling on social media? Guilty as charged, but don't you beat up yourself too much because you scrolled right onto DMs with PM this evening. Thank you for joining us. And a special thank you goes out to our sponsors, Power FM, Star FM, GBN, We FM, Fusion FM, Vibes FM, and GIS. Remember our number, ladies and gentlemen, 423-3104 to direct your questions to the Prime Minister later on.
So Prime Minister, welcome back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and good to see both of you. I should give you a...
Of course.
Let's give
Of course. Lovely to see you too.
So
both of you.
we're doing a vibe check, all right?
Okay.
And you want to know, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Yes?
Apparently, I was told I was starring on the weekend. So
Yeah? Oh,
I'm doing well.
yeah. So
Yes.
from where? Mother's Day luncheon or from Night of Love?
Oh, okay. There's a difference between the two.
Yeah.
I thought it was all Mother's Day events. So, but we had a very good Mother's Day luncheon. A lot of the senior mothers came out, grandmothers, mothers. We had a 93-year-old who won the prize for the oldest mother. I don't think we had a prize for the youngest mother, but we had a prize for someone whose birthday was also on Mother's Day. I say prize, gift. They didn't have to do anything for it other than be a mother. But I want to thank the St. David's NDC Youth Arm. They did a fantastic job in organizing the event and putting it all together. It was a lot of work, so kudos to them. It shows that the young people are obviously interested in nation building and in celebrating our mothers. So it was a great event.
Right, that's good.
Well, lovely to know that you had a good time too.
Yes.
And seeing as you're always on the go, what is something small that instantly improves your mood after a long day?
A joke.
A joke.
Yes.
Well, I ain't got none of those to tell you
Oh, we were
today.
talking about potatoes. That's always a joke.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yep, that's true. Well, let's get right into it then. Today's episode is all about an industry that us young people tend to shy away from at times, agriculture and agro-processing. Now, I know what comes to mind when I hear that. Digging the land with a rake and fork and cutlass. But it's bigger than that. Today, we're talking about Vision 75. This is Grenada's long-term national development initiative looking ahead to the 75th year of independence in 2049. The main goal is to build a stronger Grenada by focusing on areas such as agriculture, healthcare, education, innovation, youth development, and economic growth. Another main goal is to ensure we have a more resilient, self-reliant nation for our future generations. Prime Minister. Now, Vision 75 aims to involve young people with agriculture and agro-processing. How will the government address land access and agricultural continuity for young people who are interested in entering the sector but do not have inherited land or come from a background of farming?
Well, thank you for the very difficult question. The Ministry of Agriculture is already embarking upon mechanisms to ensure that there is access to land for young people in particular. The ministry has created what is called a land bank project. The idea here is to map available lands, whether they be government lands or private sector lands, and particularly in the case of private sectors, either enter into agreement with members of the private sector to either lease or if they're interested in donating the land to the land bank, so that we can then make the land available for use by young people. We have recently, for example, concluded negotiations to lease 100 acres of land in the Hopeville area, which we intend to make available for young people to be able to have access to the land. That's just one example of what we are looking at. There are also some large government estates particularly in the St. Andrew and St. Patrick area, that the government is putting in the infrastructure to make sure that the land becomes more accessible. And again, we hope that it's an opportunity for us to entice young people to be able to get access to the land at relatively little or no rent, or at affordable rent. So those are some of the very concrete steps we are taking specifically on the land access issue.
Okay, wonderful.
Right.
Prime Minister, Vision 75 is built on a promise that young people should not immigrate to find success. How will we modernize our laws to replace the friction with physical infrastructure such as corporate affairs and Inland Revenue Department with a unified digital system, ensuring a founder in Grenada can have the same scale as a global business in Silicon or in Singapore?
All right. Okay, you guys are really asking some tough questions this afternoon.
You can handle it.
But so we are already starting. I think we can start from, currently we have a situation where you have a lot of separate government institutions providing services that a young person would need in order to be able to actually form the complete ecosystem for a business. So you have the Corporate Affairs Registry where you actually register a company or register a business name. You have GIDC, which deals with a lot of things like the actual concessions or the processing of applications for concessions. So you have GIDC, then you have to go to the concessions desk in the Ministry of Finance. Then you have the Ministry of Finance itself. You have the Inland Revenue, which is a separate area in which you register for tax purposes. You have NIS, which is a separate institution, again, where you register for NIS purposes, whether you're self-employed or you're going to hire someone in the business. And all of these require separate processes. All of these requires you to go to a separate institution. The easiest way to actually get to the point where all of this has a one-stop shop is to digitize all of these services and to make sure that on the back end, all of the various institutions are able to speak to each other. And to do so, we have to put in place a sort of fundamental digital infrastructure to create this. We have begun to take some baby steps in that direction to ensure that we can begin to digitize some of the government services. But if we don't create the right foundation to make sure that we do so seamlessly, we will end up again with different digital technical solutions that don't speak to each other. So part of what we've decided to do is to create the Digital Transformation Agency as a statutory body. We are currently reviewing the legislation that is required to create the Digital Transformation Agency. We anticipate going to Parliament either by May or June of this year to create this agency. The agency then will have, in a sense, responsibility for beginning to oversee the digital transformation of all of the government services so that we can get to a point where you have seamless one-stop registration, that you can register your business using your phone, using any online platform that is available, that then sort of keys you into all of the government services that are essential to forming the business: NIS, Inland Revenue, the Corporate Affairs Registry, any concessions that you may require, any other licensing regime that you may require. It will take some time because for water to boil, it takes a while before it heats up, but we are beginning to put those measures in place. In the meantime, a lot of the government services are still being digitized individually. So for example, you can pay most of your taxes online. You can register for tax purposes online. You can pay a lot of the license and government fees online at gov.pay.gd. So we are making some steps in some of those areas. We need to accelerate things like the companies registry, NIS, GIDC, and those processes. But in order to do so, we obviously have to make sure that the infrastructure, the cybersecurity, and the human personnel are there to actually make sure that we can run these things efficiently as well.
All right, thank you.
Now, I'm glad that you said that, because digitization is very important, especially with the area and way that modern society is heading nowadays. And I'm glad that you're also speaking to these things over and over again, because a big issue is not only having these resources available for access, but people don't know about these things.
Right. So education and human capacity building and digital literacy is also part of what has to happen, because if the government services are being put online, people have to be able to function online in order to be able to access the services. So part of the digital Grenada, as we are going to brand it, that has to happen is they need to actually ensure that the population itself becomes digitally literate, because it's a new, in a sense, knowledge set that we have to acquire. The same way you learn to read and write is the same way you have to learn to become digitally literate, which means you have to be able to function and operate in a world where online services are prevalent. And so part of the digital literacy is what has to come with it. You know, we start with the things we control. From a government perspective, the employees work for us. and our job is to provide the services to the public. So making sure that government employees as a starting point can all eventually get to the point where they are digitally literate, which means they themselves can provide the services in a digital environment. They can use the services in a digital environment will be, in a sense, one of the key things we need to do. And then from there, spread that out to the rest of the society. But it also means within the education system itself, we have to ensure that, frankly, every Canadian citizen who's been educated now actually has been educated in a digitally literate manner. And I think, I give an example. I talk to people about learning to type. Right? Typing is a skill that you need if you're going to operate in a digital era. But we take those things for granted, and I very much doubt whether within the education system anyone is being told how to even position their hands properly on the keyboard so you don't end up with health issues and so on. But that's just a simple example of the kind of very basic training that we have to be able to do to make sure that the population, including our adult and senior citizens, also are trained in digital literacy so that they can actually be able to use the services that are oftentimes far more efficient and cheaper for them to use online.
Speaking about digital literacy, building on the ECCB's Dcash system, which shows that we can handle money locally, some of our creators find it hard to access international payments. How will the government use services or platforms like Dcash to help Grenadians access apps like PayPal that may not be, easily accessible for entrepreneurs?
Right. So I think there are about two issues we face. On an international and regional level, there's a clear technology divide and a clear bias, almost prejudice, that actually, in many instances, restricts developing countries from having immediate access to the technologies that exist in the first world countries. So you'd see that there are all kinds of restrictions, geographic restrictions, on what you can't and can't access online. Everything from apps to payment services to actual sale of goods and services. So part of that is a bigger international fight for global equity when it comes to digitization, access to digital services, access to online services, fairness in terms of ensuring that our creators and so on can actually be compensated for the content and so on they create. So that is part of a larger geopolitical legal fight that we have to undertake. The second part of this, though, is also ensuring that we develop apps ourselves that solves our own challenges and our own problems rather than simply consuming apps from outside of the country. And part of I think what is exciting about, in a sense, the digital economy is the fact that if we develop the human capacity and we train people in what is required to be done, then we can actually create a lot of the apps that particularly tackles the financial barriers that we face in developing countries. And if you go to Kenya, or Ghana, or Nigeria, Rwanda, probably the African continent is the best example of how Fintech has been able to revolutionize access to financial services to ordinary citizens that has bypassed, in a sense, the traditional banks and the bureaucracy that came with large numbers of people, hundreds of millions, having no access to financial services. So we can do the same in the Caribbean quite easily. And that's part of what we are trying to encourage and trying to support. So we must create, first of all, a legislative environment to encourage Fintech. We have to have the regulatory environment to encourage Fintech, but then we also have to have the investment in our young people so that they have the human capacity to create the apps and to recognize that these things can help solve a lot of the challenges we do. There's one Grenadian entrepreneur who lives in the diaspora who's created an app called SpotPay, which is seeking to do just that. We had an interview with him where he was explaining what his app is able to do, which is essentially a cash wallet that allows for payment using your phones and so on. So people are already doing this. The Grenadians are already doing this, and I expect we'll see more and more of this happening as we go forward.
Yep, absolutely. We must be the producers, not just the consumers,
That's
which
right.
is even something that Vision 75 speaks to in terms of transforming raw materials into finished products, which is brilliant.
No, absolutely. If a country that doesn't produce anything basically can't function.
Yeah.
Because if you are consuming, you must pay for what you're consuming. And the only way to pay for what you're consuming is to produce, because you then have to sell. So it's important for us to appreciate that. And production here doesn't always mean physical goods. It could also mean services. And in many countries, the production of services may outpace the production of goods. But the fact is you have to produce something. And for creatives, for example, your production is obviously a service, whether it's the entertainment, the music, the clothing, the fashion, whatever it is. But you actually have to be able to produce things for a country to grow and for the income of the country to grow. If not, the country will fail. So it's important for us to appreciate that. Similarly with the technology, if we just consume the technology, then you're paying for it. And you yourself, you're not producing anything. So where are you getting the money to pay from it? And essentially you become poorer while someone else becomes wealthier because they're producing things that they are selling. So that is part of what we have to understand. We should use the technology to monetize a lot of the creativity that we have, rather than just simply, consuming cheap and oftentimes terrible entertainment that isn't good for us in the first place.
All right, thank you, Prime Minister, for enlightening us. Listeners and viewers, we move to our first commercial break. We'll be back.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Shemin Valley.
The facility we are building will become Grenada's new general hospital. It will be a 250-bed, climate-resilient, smart hospital.
Mount Sinai is humbled to be the strategic partner for Project Polaris and to have a role in this historic endeavor.
Today, we are not just moving Earth. We are moving the nation of Grenada, Tariq, and P.T. Martinique forward.
Project Polaris!
The road to this sword-turning ceremony was not paved overnight, but Project Polaris, our North Star, was born from a simple, non-negotiable premise. And that premise is Grenadians deserve world-class healthcare right here at home.
Welcome back, especially to those who are just joining us. Here are a few DMs that you all sent to the Prime Minister. This is from Krista. About the St. John's newly constructed healthcare facility, is it operational? From time to time, I've heard concerns about bed shortages at the General Hospital. Could St. John's facility help ease the pressure, especially for folks nearby? I feel like the building is just standing there and nothing is going on. We should consider equipping it with the resources to assist in healthcare. Looking forward to your thoughts.
Thank you, Krista. I share your thoughts, and particularly the last comment that you made in terms of equipping it to function. It was designed to, in a sense, be I don't want to use the word mini hospital, but obviously more than just a basic health center. There has been some challenges, I think, with leaks and stuff like that, which the Ministry of Health has sought to work out from the construction phase. I certainly can get a further update from the Ministry of Health as to what the exact current state of it is. But certainly for persons on the West Coast, Gov, St. Mark, St. Patrick, once we can get the facility fully functional, it certainly would be an alternative to having to get to the hospital. The main challenge, and I think it's important to point this out, to the healthcare system is not so much facilities, as in physical facilities. The main challenge is still human capacity. So oftentimes when something is not available, it's because either there aren't enough nurses or doctors to be able to do it. It's not simply because the physical facility isn't there. That's really why we're focusing a lot on trying to get the number of nurses to stay, trying to increase the number of nurses who graduate and enter the system, trying to get the number of doctors who graduate, enter the system, and trying to get more doctors to specialize so that we can actually meet the healthcare needs of the citizens. So a lot of work has been done obviously on infrastructure, on building the new hospital, on improving and renovating medical and health centers. But the key piece to this is really the human capacity. And that's really where we're also focusing on.
From Sassy. The bus shed at Mount Horn by Pole is being used for gambling and for the sale of alcohol. The matter was reported to the Grenville police station, but nothing has come out of it. I am begging for someone to put a stop to it, as school children are involved in the gambling and the use of alcohol as well. The music is also very disturbing at night.
Thank you, Sassy, for bringing this matter to the attention of the public. I certainly will follow up with the RGPF about the matter. It has certainly been brought to our attention that, and I'm going to use the word cautiously, but I'm going to use it nonetheless, that there is widespread gambling taking place throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, and in particular involving school children. In fact, only today, the Minister with responsibility for mental health brought to my attention that a number of young men were picked up by the police who were found openly gambling in the middle of the day. It is something that we've been discussing at the cabinet level. The seeming growing acceptance that it is okay for young men and women and even adults to be engaging in widespread gambling in public places. And it is not something that we support. It is not something we will encourage. it is certainly something we will discourage. In fact, one of the challenges you would see with many of our bus stops is that they're being used for all kinds of purposes other than that of a bus stop. So it is something that we will be coming to all stakeholders with, including likely amendments to legislation to address this issue of public gambling. I don't think I've hidden the fact that I view gambling as something which we need to be extremely careful with because of the risk it poses to persons who are vulnerable. So it is something that would require, I think, some extensive discussions. I'm not suggesting that adults who can control themselves and who have the means to gamble may not want to take part in a controlled environment in the appropriate entertainment, but I certainly cannot sanction school children and minors being allowed to gamble. So I think for parents, this is something that I think the parents need to absolutely pay attention to. A lot of kids are gambling, and in some cases gambling even in the presence of their parents. We can't expect the school and the police to do the job of our parents. So it requires a whole of society approach to be able to address this issue, but it's certainly something that is quite concerning. So in the specific case of Mount Horn, the message is well received, and we will certainly follow up with the RGPF about it.
Very important.
Thank you. So Sanaya is asking, can we please get a street light installed at the back of Spice Garden in St. David, as well as some upgrade to the road?
Yes. Thank you, Sonaya. The street light might be easier. We will certainly look into it. I just also have to mention that, light and gardens that don't always go hand in hand. So if the street light is for a public road, certainly we can look to facilitate that. The state of the road is something we'll certainly look at. St. David has perhaps the widest network of secondary roads, and we are doing our best to obviously repair and maintain and improve as many of them as we can. So it is something we will note for future purposes to see how we can assist with it.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Sanaya, for the question. Susie asks, will the one-way road heading down to the left of Cliff Road be fixed? The holes and cracks are really causing backups as vehicles try to maneuver over them.
All right. Thank you, Susie. I'm assuming you are referring to the concrete bypass road from the cliff. I think the starting point, I think we'd all recognize is that the road has essentially had to cater for volume and level of traffic that it was not meant to cater for, in light of the fact that it became the detour from the construction work that was taking place on the main road. So certainly we think once the main road is open, then there'd be an opportunity to be able to repair those parts of the concrete road that needs repairing. I think whether or not the road has those cracks in them, the fact is the bypass road was not meant to be the main road for vehicular traffic. So we expect that once the main road is fully functional, that most of the vehicular traffic that goes through there should be light vehicles. It was not meant for heavy trucks and so on. That is part of the reason why the road is deteriorated that quickly. So in short answer, yes, once you're able to complete the main road, then the repairs could be done on the concrete part of the road.
Flowers Stewart is asking, good day, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. I applaud you for the many positive things you engage in. You don't know, but I must let you know your energy is rubbing off me. Staying calm regardless of the situation. Based on what I see, you want to see Grenadians' standard of living improve and the country moving forward. My advice is to continue to stay focused, remain positive, and keep trusting God.
Oh, that's very nice. Flowers. That's a very appropriate name. Thank you very much for the message.
Indeed, giving you your flowers. That must be
And your
very
flowers now?
important.
Yes.
Yes, well, I should say it's important to remain calm. If you make decisions when you're flustered or not calm or angry or upset, you are more likely to regret the decision you make. So obviously, if you get upset, you will feel upset. If you get annoyed, you will feel annoyed. But it's important to let the emotions pass over you, and then to, particularly if you do have to make decisions or respond or react, then respond when you're in control of yourself and in control of your emotions. That's something that I think is a message, particularly for young men, that we need to encourage, because too often times in an emotional state, we make decisions that oftentimes we regret. So it's something that I'm happy to encourage people to engage in, to not act while upset, not act while angry, and to you can't deny the emotions you feel, let the emotions pass through, and then make the appropriate decision or action thereafter.
Very true. Thank you, Prime Minister. At this juncture, we'll move to one more commercial break.
Greetings to our citizens and well-wishers in New York from the Isle of Spice, Grenada. Join me on 16th May 2026 as we celebrate a day of Grenadian excellence, starting first with the Spice Excellence Award ceremony from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., where we will honor, celebrate, and recognize the excellence of 12 outstanding Grenadians. Then we will follow this up by an evening of spice indulgence, where we celebrate and have fun as we recognize our culture, our cuisine, and our music, and where I will deliver a special address to our citizens in the diaspora. So I look forward to seeing you on Saturday, May 16, 2026. One love.
The Ministry of Agriculture White Potato Production Initiative is an OECS sub-regional project aimed at reducing Grenada's reliance on imported white potatoes, which in 2025 had an imported value of over 4.5 million EC dollars. The White Potato Production Initiative is part of the Ministry of Agriculture's food security drive and is being undertaken with the simultaneous cultivation of other crops such as sweet potatoes, pineapples, coconuts, carrots, and other vegetables. Other OECS countries like Dominica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines are already at an advanced stage in white potato production, with Dominica completely cutting the import of white potatoes during the first quarter of 2026. Grenada is now preparing to advance production for better output in 2027. The Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Forestry, ensuring food and nutrition security for all.
Welcome back. We now move to DMs from the street with Norris.
Young people, rise up. You have the power to shape what the future becomes. The Grenada that you want to see starts with your leadership today. Welcome one and all to DMs with PM, and welcome to Season 4 of DMs on the Streets. I'm yours truly, Norris Francois. Come with me as we get the DMs from the street, from the people that matter.
My concern is the fella that they drive the car and they put the speakers outside the window and for the music to hear. I wonder if this is not how I should put it, like, how I should put it, it's a problem then, because the children and the kind of music they're playing, the children will take that, and children take up things very easily. And I would like him or the police or whoever to do something about it. One person and the kind of obscene language are coming out of his speakers. I mean, your music should be played like you hear my radio playing. I say your music for you, not other people outside. They don't want to hear that. The dirty language and no good. No good for our society. No good.
Prime Minister?
Yes, well, thank you for the concerns. It is a concern. I agree with him that music should be played, your music should be played for you, not for the public. There are regulations in place that addresses public noise, and particularly emanating from loud music. It's obviously to the RGPF to try and enforce this some of the time. I think the key thing, though, is to educate the population. Loud music also damages your ear and your hearing, so that's another downside to it. But you also made the point about the content of some of what comes out in the entertainment or in the art form that is not suitable for children, and oftentimes is adult entertainment. But oftentimes, again, there is no sanctioning, no discretion used in terms of what is played. So I think we have to be able to distinguish between even persons in their private vehicles understanding that your music is for you, and a public activity where you have the permission to play loud public music, which is sanctioned by the RGPF. So these are just some of the societal challenges that we need to work on and educate our people about. While law enforcement is key to enforcing, we still need to change the behavior that underlies a lot of the actions that are taking place. Law enforcement wouldn't be able to arrest every single person that plays loud music in their vehicle is just not feasible. And what we really want to be able to do is to educate people about the dangers of excessively loud music, and also about just respecting the values of themselves and respecting the rights of other persons not to be subjected to things that they are not interested in hearing. So I think the point he's making is valid, but it requires a lot of public education about some of those issues.
True. Back to the people.
Welcome to DMs on the Street, my brother. What's your name?
Jay.
Jay?
Yeah.
Well, my name is Norris Francois. All right, so I want to ask you a question. What can you name one project in your community that you see that is developing your community?
The project Polaris.
Yeah.
Well, with that development, I think that the government should try to work on the roads or the development around the area. Like in Confer where I live, there's a road to that project actually. And to me, I believe that road should be developed because there are other persons staying within that area that should have a good road access to that area. So that if they're developing basically Project Polaris, I believe that, that
the surrounding
areas should be a little developed as well.
Wonderful.
To match Project Polaris in a sense.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Blessings, man.
No problem. Welcome.
Thank you, Jay, for the observations and the comments. I don't disagree with them. Everything obviously has to be done in a phased manner. We are obviously concentrating on the hospital for now, but we certainly expect with time that the surrounding infrastructure will be improved. There is construction work taking place in some of the areas on the roads, concrete roads, for example, in some of the areas that are in the immediate neighborhood of the site itself. So I'm not sure if he's actually aware of this, but over time we do expect that the entire road infrastructure will be improved as the project advances. Usually with projects of this type, the road infrastructure itself is actually the last thing to be done, simply because the amount of heavy equipment and heavy traffic that you have, you can't build the road first and then have it destroyed in the process. You tend to concentrate on getting the building up and then doing a lot of the finishing things like the roads and so on that will accompany this. But we do recognize that because of the location, it is an opportunity to have multiple road access to the site from, for example, the Hopeville side, not just from the Calavini main road side, but also from the Confer side, as he pointed out. So we expect that will sort of be a natural progression as the project goes along.
We move to another DM.
Good afternoon, miss. How are you?
Afternoon. Good. And you?
I'm fine. Welcome to DMs on the Streets.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Norris Francois.
My name is Anne-Marie.
All right. Ask the Prime Minister your question.
Mr. Prime Minister, afternoon, my dear friend. I live at Laborie. We have a dying problem for water situation with Nawasa. There's a load shedding. They said we only get water on Mondays and Fridays, but we are not getting the water as they say. It's really, really trying. I don't know if you can intervene or something could be done with the reshedding of the water, because if they say it's coming from 5 in the morning to 5 in the evening, we who have to go to work, maybe some after 5, some 6 for 7, and for 8, the time you have to leave with the transport on the road, the traffic. So how can we refill? And it's just a little trickle and it's so dirty, you can't get to refill anything.
Thank you, Ms. Jeleno. It's good to see you. I will certainly take your concern to Nawasa. I was not aware that the situation was this dire in Laborie, so I will certainly try and get an update and see how we can help to improve the availability of the water. We do appreciate that it's a fairly dry season, and the water challenges still persist despite significant investment in upgrading of Nawasa's infrastructure and the construction of storage tanks throughout the island. These are still ongoing, but we are hopeful that as more investment is made in those areas, we would be able to have areas like Laborie not have the challenges that you're currently experiencing. But I certainly will give the undertaking to look into this tomorrow so that we can be able to hopefully improve the supply of water to the Laborie area.
Another DM from the street.
Welcome to DMs on the Streets. What's your name?
I'm Charles Gittins.
All right, my name is Norris Francois.
Okay.
Ask the Prime Minister your question.
The question I want to ask is, why do so many boys drop out from school, and why at almost any higher level educational institution I will find more females than males? That's the question I want to ask the PM.
Thank you, Mr. Gittins. That is a very important question for all of us to ask and to answer. I can share some of my observations about why I think we are at this point. The first observation is that the way in which we parent and socialize our boys must change. If we don't make our young men accountable for their actions, then we run the risk that exactly what we're seeing will continue to happen, which is a significant absence of men in leadership positions, a significant absence of men in societal positions, and a pattern of behavior where men don't invest in themselves, and so they will fail, meaning they will not be able to enter academic institutions of higher learning. They will not be able to acquire the skills for technical and vocational success and offer entrepreneurship or for business success. So that is part of the wider societal challenge that we face. But I think it's also important to say that the way in which our boys are parented is something that needs to be significantly addressed. We can't leave boys on their own and just hope that they'll grow up. And I don't mean any disrespect with what I'm about to say. Girls are not left to just grow up on their own. There is significantly more emphasis, I think, in making sure that all through teenage years that girls are nurtured, and that a greater emphasis is placed on a value system, on instilling a value system in them. We seem to think that boys will figure it out on their own, and so questions like emotional intelligence, regulating your emotional, taking responsibility for yourself, even just physically taking care of yourself, even when it comes to things like healthcare. Men die at much earlier ages than women. They have a shorter life expectancy. They probably have as much health issues, if not more, than women, which is reflected in the shorter life expectancy. The prison is on average 400 men, not women. You may find a handful, 3 or 4 or 5 women in prison. The vast majority of alcoholics are men. The vast majority of people with addiction issues, whether it's cocaine, marijuana, alcohol, are men. The vast majority of people with gambling issues are men. So all of this is going, I'm pointing, and the vast majority of people who are abusing each other physically, violently, are men. So the question being asked is fundamentally what has become of males in the context of Grenadian society. And I think it goes back with our parenting, it goes back with our socialization. And if we don't address those issues, then we are not going to be able to reverse this issue in any significant way. I have some suggestions as to what can be done from a parenting point of view, but it will probably take the entire show for me to get involved in it, so I will stop here.
Yes, this is a very important topic that does need to continue to be revisited. And it means a lot, what you said, coming from you, not only as the Prime Minister, but as you rightfully said, as a father, a parent. Folks, we have another commercial break.
Greetings to our citizens and well-wishers in New York from the Isle of Spice, Grenada. Join me on 16th May 2026 as we celebrate a day of Grenadian excellence, starting first with the Spice Excellence Award ceremony from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., where we will honor, celebrate, and recognize the excellence of 12 outstanding Grenadians. Then we will follow this up by an evening of spice indulgence, where we celebrate and have fun as we recognize our culture, our cuisine, and our music, and where I will deliver a special address to our citizens in the diaspora. So I look forward to seeing you on Saturday, May 16, 2026. One love.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We now move to open up the phone lines. Remember to call at 423-3104 to pose your question to the Honorable Prime Minister.
I see we have a caller already. Good evening.
Good evening.
You can go right ahead.
How are you
And please
doing?
remember to be brief. And I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Yes, this question is for the Prime Minister to take back to the Ministry of Housing. Now, there is a big problem with builders in Grenada, builders that are incompetent, builders that do not know the reason why they sign a contract and the term breach of contract. So if the Ministry of Housing could set up a committee to investigate when issues happen with builders, so that the builder name, after they find it, after the investigation, they can put that builder's name in a registry, so that Grenadians, especially Grenadians living in the diaspora, can choose a builder that is competent.
Thank you for your question.
Yes, thank you for the recommendation. So I agree with the caller wholeheartedly. The construction industry in Grenada is not regulated. And we have to regulate it, which means we are going to have to develop the policies and pass legislation, standards and specifications that requires people to be qualified to call themselves a builder, and I'm going to use that word in inverted commas, or anyone with a purporting to say that they have a skill. So whether it's an electrician, a plumber, a tiler, painters, general contractors, because as it stands now, if I walked and met some unsuspecting person and said to them I'm a contractor, they have no means of verifying that. They may say, give me 2 references. I could just call 2 friends and say, yes, tell this person I built 2 homes for them, and they could even bring and show you a house that they didn't build and say they built it. Right? And then they basically take your money, and in many instances you may never see nor hear from them again. So it's unfortunately one of the failings of the society that we have not over time regulated or passed any legislation to address the construction industry. But it's not just the actual building contractors as well. We have to deal with engineers and architects as well, because if we don't have those regulated as well, we'd also have challenges where people are going to design things that simply can't be built, etc. So there is an Engineers Act on the books. We have sought to constitute the Engineers Board so that the board can become functional and we can begin to start addressing some of those issues. But that is one huge vacuum that exists, and I will certainly say it is something that as a government we have to be able to tackle and tackle sooner rather than later, because we don't expect that the construction industry will slow down in Grenada, because as you can see there's more and more construction taking place, there's more and more people wanting to have decent quality housing, so it is something that we absolutely have to address. So I agree with the caller.
True.
Thank you. Another caller?
Another caller.
Good evening, host and the PM.
Good evening.
Yes, I'd like to bring to the attention this now once a situation where maybe you can talk to them about given the, we should have our own personal meters. We should have an option to own our meters and getting a discount on the water that's not totally healthy and cuts off, we don't get it full of water. And second, how soon you think you would get a fire station in St. David's area? And third, the group of children that's at the National Health Insurance, there's just a small group, a percentage that are being taken care of, while all of the majority, more than 75% of the state children are being overlooked, falling through the cracks because their parents or guardian is not strong enough to take on the bureaucracy to help the children that needs really help. Could you look to that, please?
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller. I'm not so sure that I got all of the questions or comments. I can take on the one about the fire service in St. David. There's actually a fire station in St. David that has been built. What is required is actually the fire tender itself to be delivered. Unfortunately, procurement of fire tenders is actually a process that takes quite a long time. Being able to order and get a fire tender takes, in many instances, 2 years, simply because these are not equipment that is built ordinarily. They're literally custom made after you order them, and it takes quite a while. We have been working on trying to procure what I would call adjusted water trucks that can serve as fire engines. It is something we've looked to as a short-term measure, and then also we've been working with Grenadians in the diaspora to also see whether we can have second-hand fire tenders made available for Grenada, particularly because also our roads are quite narrow. And in many of the residential areas, the larger fire tenders will simply not be able to traverse the road to get to the areas. So the St. David's police station itself has to be renovated as well. And so we had asked that the police officers move temporarily into the fire station so that we can be able to take on the renovation of the fire station. So there is the police station, sorry. So there is a fire station there. It's just a question of getting the tender. The first and second point, I really could not follow what the caller was saying. So if the caller is available and he wants to call back, I think he was speaking about national health insurance and children, but I'm not sure I understood the question.
You can call back if you so please, sir. I see we have another caller online.
Good evening, Prime Minister.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you give us a little update about Project Polaris, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm not sure so specifically which aspect of the project the caller wants an update on, but I'd explain a little bit. So obviously we have the groundbreaking ceremony which took place. The current state of the project is that significant geotechnical tests are still taking place on the site. The next phase is for us to have the detailed designs for not the hospital site itself, but the larger site, because as you'd appreciate, the entire site is about 84 acres. We intend to build out all of the roads to the entire site at the same time. So we're in the process of having the design team design the roads and drains for the site. The technical team has indicated the site has to be lifted by, I think, 3 meters, which means that there's going to have to be significant earthworks. And this is partly to mitigate the risk of flooding, because as you know, there's a river that runs through it, but we also want to be able to use the river as a feature of the design so that we can keep that. The next stage finally is for us to get to the point where the actual contractor is selected. The government agreed to have a design build model done so that the contractor is also designing. In order to fast track the process, we've actually gone ahead and retained a design firm. And we have to work with the design firm so that when the contractor is selected, the design firm's work can then be novated or transferred to the contractor. There's a 75-day process between which the contractors who are shortlisted, I think there are 5 or 6 of them, when they will make their final, submit the final bid documents, we will then evaluate this, and then the contractor will be awarded the contract to begin the construction. That is just pure construction side. There's still a significant work that has to be done on the human capacity side in terms of the regularization of staff at the Ministry of Health, the transition from the current Ministry of Health department into a statutory body that will create the Hospitals Authority that will then be responsible for the actual management of all of the hospitals in Grenada. So there is policy work being done there. We have to pass the necessary legislation. We have to engage with the stakeholders, the unions, etc., because then we have to transfer staff, particularly the clinical staff, from the Ministry of Health into the statutory body that will run the hospitals. Of course, all while that is happening, you have to do things such as procure equipment and outfit the hospital when it's built, etc. There are also initiatives that are taking place now to improve the management of the hospitals. We've retained a facilities manager whose job is to begin to pay specific attention to the actual state of the hospitals and bring them up to the kind of standard we need. So things like the labs, the laundry, the instructions I have, the person has already made a significant difference in the laundry because the laundry was simply not working, which means all laundry was being outsourced. I'm told they've saved already $30-something thousand per month because he's been able to repair and get the laundry up and running. So we are retaining a facilities manager, we are retaining a human resource specialist, we are retaining a chief executive officer. We expect that by September all of these persons will be in place as we begin the transition. So it is a very complex process. I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can. The third aspect of this is national health insurance, because we want by the time the hospital opens that we have a national health insurance in place so that we can actually finance healthcare for persons who otherwise may not be able to afford it by having an insurance system in place that can cover the cost of some of the treatment that will come with national health insurance. But perhaps since the question was asked, I'll ask the Project Polaris team to ensure that they are providing consistent and reliable updates as to how we will progress for the next 6 to 8 months of the year.
We have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Hi, good evening, young folks, and good evening to the Prime Minister. I would like to speak to the Prime Minister about something very important with regards to agriculture, but I would prefer if I not speak to him on the line. I don't know if that is possible. Like, obviously not now, but sometime later.
Okay, caller, they will take your number after and contact you. All right?
We have another caller. I just want to say also briefly that I get so excited whenever I hear about Project Polaris. Genuinely. Stay curious like this, folks. And if you haven't, continue or start doing your research on Project Polaris.
So there is a website, so you can go online and you can see everything that's happening. You can see all the town halls, you can see all the information that's been presented. I'm not sure if they're still doing tours of the site, but the site is also available for people to go in and see what the current site looks like as well.
Caller?
Good evening.
Good evening.
To the most wonderful PM in the whole Caribbean and maybe the world. I love you, Mr. PM. I hope I don't go blank, but I have two questions. One is about the Project 500 for landowners. When can information be, given out to people who have their land already? And also concerning immigration for a child of a Grenadian parent who lives in the diaspora. I know the child had to be there in the past, but would there be any way that it's done online without the child being there in the future?
All right, thank you for the questions. In relation to Project 500, I think what we are currently seeking to do is to actually, I think, sell about 12 of the 17 model homes that were built, and thereafter the next stage, which is well, there are likely to be two phases. One, to treat with persons who already have their own land. Coming out of the pilot, we wanted to be able to clearly recommend which of the homes we think are best suited for a Grenadian context, based on price and based on structural integrity, bearing in mind we've got hurricanes. I think those recommendations are coming out of the pilot, and I think the Housing Authority will be in a position to clearly articulate, I would say in a matter of weeks, which of the various models of the home that they would recommend based on price point, based on speed of construction, and based on integrity and the topography of the land as well, because that's critical in Grenada. And then the next phase after that would be for the partnership and the financing between homeowners, banks, and contractors to be able to ensure that we get the type of partnership that will allow for the construction of homes on persons' lands who have lands. But I have to make it very clear, even if you have the land, you obviously have to be able to obtain the financing from the financial institution to finance the particular type of home that you wish to build. We will not be recommending all of the homes because I think you had about 5 or 7 different models. We are narrowing it down to 2 or 3, partly because we think if we narrow it down to 2 or 3, then it can actually drive the cost of each individual home down, because then you can order a lot of the materials in bulk because you are seeking to specialize rather than trying to build 7 different types of models. So I would certainly say that the Project 500 team should be able to provide an update in the coming weeks to the public. The last report I had, which was as of today, indicated that there may have been already 100 applications by persons seeking to buy the 12 homes. So it tells you the demand is almost 8 to 9 times that of the supply. So we do recognize that obviously the housing needs is something that, the housing demand is something that is clearly quite there. And hopefully as we come out of this stage, we'll be in a position to continue improving accessibility to affordable homes as we go forward.
Okay, we move to another caller.
Right, there was one, before we move to the other caller, I think there was a second question that the caller asked about immigration. I wasn't too clear on the question, but if someone is a Grenadian, as for example, if they were born in Grenada and they migrated, and they have a child outside of Grenada, then that child is entitled to citizenship as well. It isn't a requirement that the child has to be physically in Grenada to obtain the citizenship, so I'm not so sure why the caller would have asked that specifically, but yes, the application for citizenship can be processed without the child having to be here physically in Grenada.
Caller, go right ahead.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Good evening.
Okay. I'm very glad for this opportunity to speak to the Prime Minister. While I understand we have to go through inconveniences for development, I wish the government would do something about Renault's behavior on the road. Now, the Renault trucks pass up and down the lane and Marist Hill, they pass in convoys, and they blow their horn consistently. Our local people usually have a car in front warning that a big vehicle is coming, but the Renault truck just stick their hand on the horn and they just blow whatever hour of the night it is and disturb people. So I wish something could be done about that. We welcome the development, but the inconvenience is a bit too much. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will certainly take the message back to the contractors' representatives, and perhaps we can find a culturally more accessible way to warn persons about the risk of having large trucks on the road. I assume they're blowing the horns because they want to alert other pedestrians and users of the road of the dangers of the presence of large concrete trucks or large trucks carrying aggregates. But if the use of the horns is excessive, as you pointed out, I'm sure they can find alternative means of notifying the public. So we will certainly take that back to the representatives of the company.
And with that, we come to the end of DMs with PM this evening. Thank you for joining us and engaging with us this evening, everyone. Thank you for your comments, for calling in, and of course, your DMs as well. Prime Minister, what would you like to say to our beloved audience before we say bye-bye?
Right, well, I wish to speak to a specific sector of our audience, which is our nurses. It's International Nurses Day, and therefore I take the opportunity to send a big shout out to all of our nurses, current and retired, who've taken the vocation of nursing and have nursed and helped many of us in our communities from the time we were born to the time that we get to our grave, and caring and looking out for us. I had the opportunity of being at the hospital briefly this afternoon and meeting with some of the nurses. So thank you for the service to nation building. Thank you for the service of caring for us. And I hope to all our nurses that you get the opportunity to reflect and celebrate a little bit with your colleagues as you celebrate International Nurses Day. Thank you.
And Prime Minister, just before we wrap up, you want a little bit more information on Spice Indulgence as the event in New York. Would you care to share us?
Yes, so certainly I'm happy to do so. The event is on Saturday in New York City. There are two events, one which is awarding grenade agents who've done exceptionally well. Most of them are diaspora based, but Mr. Killer is also there. I would say he's locally based. Yeah. And then the second event in the evening is a night of acoustic music. We have some of the local Grenadian artists on. The events are fundraising events, but there's also events being done to honor the wonderful and amazing work of Grenadians in the diaspora. And in a sense, it's a bit of a prelude to the diaspora homecoming. And then on the Sunday, we've got a town hall meeting in New York. The town hall is designed to provide the diaspora, particularly with information relating to Project Polaris and the diaspora homecoming, as well as I think just a broader overview of all of what we're doing in the healthcare sector, because healthcare has been one of the main issues that I think the diaspora has always raised about concerns about coming back, returning home either for retirement or even for vacation. And we want to assure them that we are taking this issue seriously and to brief them on it.
Well, PM, I just finished my exams, right? So can I come with you? It seems fun.
That's a good one. We'll see. We'll talk about it offline.
No problem, no problem.
So we've got the vision and we're heading to 75. To our incredible audience, those of you who have been watching on GIS and GBN, and everyone tuned in across the Spice Isle on Power FM, Star FM, We FM, Fusion, and Vibes, thank you for your calls, your messages, your energy. This conversation reminds us why you matter. Join us on the next episode of DMs with PM. This is Tariq and Shiloh, reminding you to stay safe, be productive, and in all else, live in love. Good night.
Good night.